皆さん、英語のソータです。
And I'm Reilly.
Hey Riley, the Faster All English episode was kind of popular because I got comments like it was really fun and it was, good practice for me. So keep doing that.
All right, then I'll try to talk more quickly in the future episodes, or as quickly as that last one, I mean.
Yeah, and I also learned a lot from the episode. It was very interesting to me because you, an American guy, goes back to America and then talking about the reverse culture thing. And you've been living in here in Japan for over 7 years. That's why you can feel in that way. That contrast was kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mentioned in the episode, of course, most of those things that I like knew they were happening, but then to like actually experience them, again, or one of the two of them for the first time were kind of, shocking, I guess.
And also you said it was kind of more than you expected.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that contrast or that perspective were interesting to me. So, I hope everyone also enjoyed it. はい。前回のオールイングリッシュエピソード皆さんお聞きになりましたか？いつもより速いスピードでライリーに話してもらうようにお願いしてまして、インスタの方でね、ストーリーの方でリクエストじゃなくてアンケートも取ったりしたんですよ。今回のスピードどうでしたかとか、一言一句聞き取れましたかとか。で、総括的に見て、スピードで続けていってもいいなと思いました。で、速いなと思われた方は、今アプリで、slow down できるので、速度をね、それでちょっと下げたりしながら聞いてみてくださいね。で、個人的にライリーがアメリカに帰って、日本に長く住んでるからこそ感じる逆カルチャーショックっていうのが、なるほどなっていう、すごい個人的にも聞いてて面白かったなと思うので、ぜひ皆さんにも、まだ聞かれてない方は聞いていただきたいなと思います。And also, I'm going to Tokyo tomorrow to see Tater. Tater に会いに行くんです。そう、それを今ここで言ってどうすんねんって話なんですけど、今日木曜日なんですが、テイラーに会いに行くので、インスタとかにもしかしたら載ってるかもしれないので、僕は英語のソータで調べていただくと、インスタストーリーとかね、よく更新してますので、ぜひご覧ください。では、テイラーのことを考えながら、I'll talk about entrance examination, thinking about Tater Swift now. So, are you ready, Riley?
Yeah.
ソータと
ライリの台本なし英会話レッスン Episode 264.
All right, what is the topic for episode 264, Riley?
It's entrance exams in the US versus Japan.
はい、今回のお題は入学試験アメリカ vs 日本です。In Japan, that season of entrance examination, is coming up soon or has already started perhaps. And then now some listeners who are students are seriously studying very hard while listening to this episode perhaps. So I decided to talk about entrance examination and I want to compare. And at the same time, in Japan, it's a kind of so serious. And then once we miss a chance to, for example, get into the university, the dream school, for example, a lot of people have the extra year, one more year to study harder or something. So I sometimes wonder is that, I'm sometimes wondering if it's really necessary or if people think too much they might get disappointed or something. So I want to focus on that aspect too.
Okay, sure.
Yes, but first of all, from your perspective, can you find any difference between Japan and America in terms of entrance examination?
I mean the differences are pretty huge, to be honest. Like first of all, like we don't really have, I would say individual universities don't really have an entrance exam test.
Mm-hmm.
We just have the SAT. It's kind of a standard test that pretty much everyone takes. And that's, I guess, close to like the Senta Shiken or something like that. Right? But the schools don't have their own test.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the biggest difference, I guess.
So only one test, and then how, can universities or school decide or judge students?
So there's a bunch of other stuff that goes into it, like your GPA, your grades, basically your grades in school. GPA stands for grade point average. So I don't know. Do you do that in Japan out of 4.0? Like if you get like in America, it's like 90, I forget, 94 and above, at least in university, 94 and above is a 4.0. And if that's your average, and then I think like a minus, so like under 94, under 93 is like a 3.7 or something like that. So like basically if your GPA is 3.7 or more, that's good. That means you got like above 90 and everything. But if your GPA is like below 3, it's kind of bad. That would mean you got like C's in a lot of classes. C means like 70%-ish, 75.
Yeah, after getting into university, I had that system GPA, but until then I didn't. So for high school students, maybe even now they don't.
Right, that makes sense. I mean, in America, like we don't really think about the GPA as a number in high school. We just hear like A, B, C, D, or F. We don't really think about the actual GPA like number until you're applying to university, and then you have to go like find out what your GPA is from your school or something like that.
Oh, so each school has a kind of request GPA number.
Well, it's the same, but in high school you take so many classes that you don't necessarily know at all times like what your GPA is. You don't follow like that, but you probably know like, oh, I got like 1B last year, or I got like whatever. You know what grades you got, but you don't know the number until you apply to university and have to put it on your application.
Oh, so they can't know until they apply for it.
You could probably ask at any time, but nobody does. Like nobody really cares.
Then, in that way, I think it's easier for students to get into university.
Well,
because they're not really serious about it. I mean, like getting high GPA score or something.
Yeah, I think people are kind of serious about it. It depends on the person, obviously, but like people will, of course, try to get A's in all their classes, but if they get a B here or there, they're not going to say, oh, that means my GPA went from 4.0 to 3.85, or they're not going to think about the number so much. They're just going to think, oh, I got a B, like I didn't want that, or, whatever. But so in addition to GPA, there's also usually an essay you have to write, or sometimes two. And then there's other like some universities have an interview, most don't. And then there's other stuff like you kind of write a resume almost, where you have like the clubs that you were in, and they call it extracurricular activities, right? Which is kind of like clubs, but also like if you did any community service, like volunteer activities, a lot of people put that on their college application. It's kind of almost more like a job application than a Japanese university application, I think.
確かに。では一旦ちょっと訳したいなと思うんですけれども、SAT と GPA と、あとは最後言ってくれてた resume。なので、まず日本とアメリカの違いは、日本はそれぞれの大学に対して、試験がありますよね。例えば、国公立と私立でも、最初国公立の場合は、今名前なんか変わってるんですよね。僕らの時代はセンター試験でしたけれども、共通テストとかでしたっけ、を受けて、で、その後、それぞれの大学の個別の試験を受けるっていう。まずそこがシステム的に違うと。アメリカの場合は、その日本の、共通一次のようなセンター試験、共通一次ってもっと昔か。今の名前、ごめんなさい。ちょっと間違ってたらすいませんが。昔でいうセンター試験のようなものがアメリカには1個あって、それが、that test, kind of unified test is GPA, you said? SAT.
Yeah, it
うんう
stands
ん。
for Standard Aptitude Test.
うんうんうん。Standard Aptitude Test。
Yeah, maybe standardized, but I think Standard Aptitude
うんうんう
Test.
ん。なるほど。っていう、そのテストがあって、あとは、それぞれの学校での、成績、GPA。大学に入った途端ね、GPA っていうのは出てくるので、ね、経験したことある方も多いと思うんですけど、高校の時はそれがないですよね。ライリーが、そこがまず大きな違いだよね、と。アメリカの大学では GPA で、その提出をして、しかも面白かったのが、提出するその時まで基本自分の GPA があんまわからない。つまりそれくらい、あの、いわばちょっと大学には入りやすいってよく聞くのは、そこなんだろうなと思いました。結構日本だったら、どこどこの大学に行くためには、何点以上を絶対取らないといけないみたいなのがあると思うんですけど、GPA、自分のスコアがギリギリになるまでわからないくらい、ね、結構提出しても、それで提出しても通ることも多い、イコール、簡単にちょっと入りやすかったりするところもあるのかなとは、今聞いてて思いました。あとは、レズメイっていうのは履歴書ですけれども、自分がどんなアクティビティをしてきたのか、よくボランティアをね、するとか、だから結構大学生が就職の時に、やる感じが、アメリカの高校生とかにはあるんだろうなっていうのを今聞いてて感じましたかね。そういう意味でまずシステムが全然違うと。So, from your perspective, like, what do you think about the Japanese entrance exam system, honestly?
Yeah, I don't really like it, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. Like I know I've taught a few high school kids who are, getting ready for university and like, it's pretty common, I think, right? If you were in a club for high school, maybe all of junior high school too, and then all of high school, but then in your third year of high school, you pretty much like stop going to club because you just study all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And obviously club is one example, but like these kids, the ones I taught were pretty serious about getting into like a good university, so maybe they studied more than average, I don't know, but they didn't do like anything
Mm-hmm.
except study. Like
Studying.
it was kind of boring because I had these like conversation classes with them and I'd say, "Oh, what did you do this week?" And it was always, "Oh, I just study." Like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
do anything. I mean, even one student, I don't know if this is common, one student like toward the end of the year, maybe halfway through the year, I forget, like just stopped going to school and just studied at home.
Mm.
Is that normal?
Not normal. Kind
Okay.
of rare case, but yeah, some people might do it, especially nowadays. you know, um, the attitude toward going to school could be also different, or could be changing. So when I was younger, I kind of felt like I had to go to school every day. But recently, for example, elementary school kids as well, like parents, um, kids can be absent from school for their family trip. And it's more acceptable now
Hmm.
compared to the past. It's been changing. So perhaps, the recent high school students might skip their school to study harder by themselves, perhaps.
Yeah.
Hmm. But yeah, anyways, you feel like it's kind of, you said boring, but it's kind of really hard for them.
Yeah, it's really hard
Mm.
for them. And like, I don't know, it's a big contrast from America because in America, your senior year of high school, your last year of high school is usually the most fun. Like you have the most freedom to do like teachers give you more freedom. They like kind of trust you more. You get to do like projects and things like that. And you're like in America, of course, like senior year, pretty much everyone can drive cars. You're like almost an adult and I'll maybe talk about this a little later in like how college application works in America, but you also don't really have that much responsibility your senior year. You're you're pretty relaxed actually.
Mhm. Okay, it might be more interesting for us to talk about those pros and cons of the
Sure.
system itself, Japan versus America. 今なんかふと思ったのが、その日本の入試制度と、アメリカの入試制度、それぞれのいいところとデメリットっていうのを話すと面白いんじゃないかなって今、ふと思いました。なので、ただ比較していくだけじゃなくて、そこから実際に得られるもの、あるいは改善していくべきものっていうのを話すと、面白いかなと今思ったので、ちょっとシフトしていきたいなと思います。その前に、今話してくれていたのは、日本の入試制度にどう思うかっていう。で、ライリーも、高校生をね、何人か教えたことがあって、学校で働いてた時も、ね、あったと前に僕も聞いたんですけど、やっぱり高3になった途端、クラブにももう行けない、部活にも行けない、クラブ言うたらちゃいますね。クラブ、こんな、ずんちゃんちゃんちゃんみたいなやってる人はいないです。クラブ活動にね、行けない。で、もう最近だったら学校全く行かず休んで、家で受験のために勉強していたりとか、でも、それに対してアメリカではもう、高校3年生なんかめちゃくちゃ楽しい時期で、もっとリラックスして人生を謳歌する時期でもあるっていう。その分日本は大学に入ったら4年分ぐらいめちゃくちゃ遊べるみたいな人たちも多いんですけど、そこも含め、なんかこのシステムってね、どうなんだろうっていうところをちょっと話していきたいなと思いました。So, yeah, as a Japanese person, I also feel it's sometimes weird for students to have to study so hard for a year during the, grade 3 year. But at the same time, through that experience, maybe Japanese people are considered as sometimes, patient or hard worker or dedicated. I think we get trained during that period because, we have to study a lot and we have to aim for one goal or dream. And then, yeah, as you mentioned in the last episode, in the past, like Asian or, in that case, Asian, but compared to other races, Asian people are kind of really serious. That's why they can get a better score. That's what you say, right?
I don't think I said it like that, to be
Like,
honest.
About the racial discrimination. No, racial entrance difference. Like, if the goal score is set equally to all the races, only Asian people can get into the university. That's why, some percentage of people for Asian, some are for white, some are for African American. In America, schools have that kind of system.
Yeah, universities, they're not supposed to, but there's you're right that typically on like SATs, for example, Asian students tend to score higher than others. So if it was purely by like the entrance exam test, then more Asian kids would get into university than others, like proportionally. And there has been some evidence that universities, like even big ones, I think like Harvard did it too, where like kind of having a secret limit of the amount of Asian kids that they accepted, and we're accepting other kids, like black kids or whatever, kids of other races, for even though they might have had lower scores than some of the Asian kids. Now, this stuff is all kind of like, I'm not super sure of it. It was in the news a while ago. But yeah, that is something that was happening. It was kind of like it was a big deal in the news for a while. Maybe still is. I don't know.
Yeah, so observing that result or aspect, I wanted to say that, Asian or Japanese are kind of, hard workers, and then they can be sometimes smart because of the, cramming time, getting a lot of information, studying for a test or something. So I started to talk about it because I wanted to find the positive aspect of this Japanese entrance examination system. But as you said, we should ask a question like, do we need that amount of study a whole year? That's the point, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as positive aspects go, I think you're right in that it does kind of teach Japanese students, and well, later when they become adults, teaches them how to work hard or how to work for a goal. I think that's a good point. I mean, I almost think that's kind of a bad thing in a way, because it also kind of maybe is part of the reason why so many people in Japan work overtime and kind of work too much. But if in the good case that people want to work more actually, and they're not being forced to work more, then it is a good thing. Being able to do that is a good thing, right? And the other side of it, I think that there might be a case to be made that having like a test score, just a test score as the admission criteria, and I know that like Japanese universities have other criteria as well. It's not really just highest score gets into the university. There's other things, but
not really, honestly.
Not really. Okay, well, maybe that's all. But if that is the case, then you could say that it's more fair in a way. It's at least more objective. In the American way, when you write an essay or when you have your different extracurriculars, your different service, volunteer work that you did, there's a little bit more room for the university to pick favorites, kind of,
It's
like
not fair in that way.
Yeah.
確かにね。そう。僕は日本の入試制度にもいいところはあるんじゃないかっていうのをこう見つけたいのと、それで確かにいいって感じるところもあると思ったので、今この流れにまず持ってきたんですけど、僕はまず思うのは、やっぱこう受験のために頑張るっていう、あそこで忍耐力だったりとか、あとは、あの頃に勉強したことって、今日常でも使ったりすることもあると思うんですよ。で、これはあくまで、極端な例ですけど、小学校の時に習った、ね、例えば、1キロは1000メートルとかね、例えばですよ、1時間は60分とか、あるいは送り仮名に通に点々なのか、数に点々なのかとか、例えばですけど、いろんな方とやっぱお仕事するってなった時に、その時にちゃんと勉強していた人としてない人って、例えばメールの作成の仕方だったりとか、例えば何かを作ってもらおうってなった時のその送り仮名だったりとか、蓋を開けてみると、学歴で全て決めるべきではないと思う過去のエピソードでお伝えしたように僕は思ってるんですけど、やっぱり勉強頑張った人のそのパフォーマンス、ジョブパフォーマンスって良かったりする傾向にはあるなっていう見方もあると思うんですよね。つまり言いたいことが、やっぱり入試のために頑張った時期があることによって、社会に出た時に頑張れる知識だったり、忍耐力だったりっていうのが得られるっていうのは一ついい点だと思うんですよね。あとはライリーが今挙げてくれてた、そのいい点を挙げるのであれば、criteria っていうのもタイピングしておいてもらいましょうかね。条件、admission criteria ってライリー言ってましたかね。入学するための条件。その条件っていうのが、ある意味平等でありますよね。何点以上取ったら、あるいは上から高得点順で、入学できるっていう。でもアメリカの場合は、ある意味結構エッセイで読まれた、決められたり、結構平等じゃない。そこに例えば人種とかも絡んでくるんだろうなって今聞いてて思いましたけど、誰を取るのかっていうのは結局大学の好みだったりで分かれてしまうことがあるんじゃないかと。で、昔のエピソードでも言ってたように、この人種の人何パー、この人種の人何パーっていうふうに設けていかないと、アジア人で結構、テストのスコアだけで決めたら埋まってしまうっていうお話が昔あったんですね。このライリーとの会話の中で。それもすごく僕記憶に残ってて、やっぱり日本を含めるアジア人のその勤勉性というか、勉強するっていう努力家のところっていうのは、賞賛に値するところでもあるんじゃないかなとも思ったんですよね。So after starting to work, I realized that, that period in which we had to study a lot and then learned a lot, helps us to, for example, communicate or work smoothly. Let's say Japanese has kanji, and then, okurigana kata. Do you know okurigana?
Yeah.
Yeah. For example, izure, tsu, 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 dot, dot, or su, dot, dot.
Right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing is something, we can't learn after growing up. But this is just an example, but we have to write an email in a polite way, for example, and diligent or hardworking, people who studied harder when they were younger can write more smoothly, for example, about emails. So like this,
Sure.
my point is, because of that, tough period, some people can be trained or some people can learn a lot, and that things will be helpful at some point in the future. That's the positive aspect.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But what do you think is the negative aspect from your perspective?
I think I kind of already went into it, right? Like all the amount of time they spend studying is time they could be, enjoying the last year of kind of their childhood, doing club stuff, seeing friends that maybe they won't see for a while if they go off to university in a different prefecture or something like that. And, spending time with their parents that they will be moving away from in not too long. And all these kind of things that I think are important, that if you spend whatever it is, 12 hours a day studying, school plus 4 hours at home or more, you don't have much time to do anything else.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, because of those, customs or hardworking mind, people have to work overtime, and then sometimes they can't quit their not favorite job, or you think that's kind of related to each other?
Yeah, I do. I think that
now.
I don't know if it is planned. I don't know if there can't really be someone who plans all of this, but I can't help but feel that there's some connection between the way that Japanese students study and the way that they work, the way that Japanese people work. And obviously it's not everyone, but I think it is kind of expected of Japanese students to study hard, right? To go to school and then go home and, study 4 hours or more at home after school, especially during this kind of exam season. And then it's also kind of expected of a lot of workers in Japan, and I think this is getting better, at least I hope so, that you are kind of expected to put in your 8 hours of work and then do a little bit more. Like you're seen as maybe not that hard of a worker if you only work 8 hours, which is not fair, I guess.
そうやんな。そう、なので次、いろんな方に考えていただきたい、あるいはね、雇い手の方などにも考えていただきたい視点っていうのが、めちゃくちゃ働いている人がすごい人、プラスそこに残業もしてる人がすごい人、みたいなのがもう日本の風潮になってしまってるので、もう社会的に、もう無意識的に、もう過労死するぐらいまで働かないといけないっていう、この風潮っていうのが、やっぱり作り上げられている。で、その背景にあるのが、やっぱり学生の時に、経験する受験だったりとか、もう勉強をどれだけ詰め込むか、で、どれだけいい点数を取ってるかで、人の良し悪しを決められる大学の入試のシステムだったり、なんかライリーが挙げていた視点と僕もすごくわかると思うのが、忍耐力も養われる、勤勉な日本人を作られる、その一方で、 しんどくてもやりきらないといけないみたいな風潮を感じざるを得ない社会にしてしまっているっていう、ここに確かに、疑問を持っていかないといけないことでもあると思うんですよね。で、ここからちょっと僕のパーソナルなお話になりますけど、僕はそのエリートコースみたいな、みんながこう中学行って、高校行って、大学行って、で、なんでしょうね、こう、親もそうですよね。親にこう全部やってもらってみたいな、こう、もうエスカレーター式の、こう、お坊ちゃん、お嬢ちゃんコースみたいなのを歩んでない人生でもあるので、その視点で見たときに、なんかこう、日本って本当にこう、その綺麗な道を通っていかないといけないみたいな、そういう風潮もあったりすると思うんですよね。で、すごく思うのが、仕事をするってなったときに、やっぱり勉強しかこうしてきてなかったりする人ってたまになんかこうユーモアさがなかったり、面白さがこう欠けてしまったり、で、一個挫折しただけで打たれ弱かったりっていう、なんかそういうのを社会的にも作ってしまってるんじゃないかなと思うんですよね。So, actually, I'm not the person who was, going to school every day. And then, my parents, for example, my parents didn't tell me to study hard or something. So,
うん。
I was a kind of person who was out of the, normal path or normal line of Japan. But for me, I love my life because I think sometimes we need some fun time and humor or unique ideas or something. But if, people are only studying for the test, I think they look like a robot sometimes. And then once some hard times happen, for example, they can't get over them because they just studied and then they don't know how to have fun or how to deal with the problem. So my point is, I can really understand what you said. If we don't have fun time, um, we tend to think seriously, and then sometimes we can't think flexibly. I think that's another negative aspect I can come up with.
Yeah,
Did that make
sure.
sense?
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
So I think that's what you meant or what you said too. Like Japanese are working too hard and then too serious sometimes, right?
Maybe, I don't know. I guess so. I don't really know
う
about that
ん、
so much.
そうやね。なんかね、その今勉強してる方とかに伝えたいなと思うのが、日本でやっぱりそれが求められるのであれば、例えば、やっぱり大学に行ったら、いいね、仕事のチャンスに巡り合えるっていうのは、僕は、その社会でそれが求められているのであれば、可能な限り寄せれるなら寄せた方がいいと思うんですよね。なので僕も常になんかそこを常になんかこう、迷ってたというか、バランス取ってたなってすごい思います。自分はなんかこう、枠にはまって生きてはいきたくない。僕、学生の頃から、そう、学校行くのとかすごい嫌だったので、特に進学校に通ってたので、もうみんなが勉強で人の価値を決めるみたいな風潮がすごく苦手で、ほぼ学校行ってなかったんですね、高校の時とか。そういう意味で僕、綺麗なルートを通ってないっていうのはそういう意味だったんですけど。でも、ここで例えば、もう腐ってしまって、もう大学も行かない、もう勉強なんていいってなると、社会人になった時に、例えばいい会社に入れないっていう事実は覆せない。ってなった時に、ある程度やっぱ勉強はしとかないといけないよなと思って自分で勉強するっていうバランスをとってたんですよね。つまり、言いたいことが、今、受験生とか、受験生の親とか、こう、どうかなんかバランスをとって楽しみながら、でも社会の要求に応えれるような、なんかこう、マインドセットを持てるように、何かできないのかなっていうのを、今すごく考えてました。So, I'm getting confused and it's getting difficult to talk about this, kind of sensitive one because everyone has a different way of thinking toward, you know, getting into a good university or not. But for
Sure.
me, for example, I didn't go to school because all my friends were studying very hard at my high school. and then they judged or evaluated or decided people's, people's quality or anything based on scores at that time. And that happens in Japan. So I didn't like that kind of atmosphere. So I decided not to go to school every day. But at the same time, the society in Japan requires us to study hard and to get a good score, to get into a good university and to get a better job. So I always try to have the balance between studying a little bit hard by myself and at the same time not forgetting what is important as a human. So,
Sure.
do you have any advice or something you can come up with for people who are studying for entrance examination right now?
I don't know. This is maybe not very good advice in Japan. In America, I would give people advice that in the end, it doesn't matter that much what university you go to. I gave this advice to one of my students actually. He didn't listen to me, but that's okay. I told him like he wanted to go to Kobe University, which is a pretty good school. And I think his second choice was Osaka City University, Osaka Metropolitan University. I forget what it's called. And I said, if you have to study 6 hours a day to go to Kobe and you only have to study, 3 hours a day to get into Osaka Metropolitan, then is it really twice as good a school? Will you make is it twice as important to you? Doing that kind of thinking. And in the end, he said yes. And I said, okay, that's fine. But, I think it's not worth, really grinding yourself down to studying in order to get into the best possible university, because in the end, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but maybe in Japan it might actually be, because the university you go to does have a big impact on what job you get and stuff like that. In America, it's not as important. Like obviously if you go to Harvard, that's better than going to like a local university in your small town. But other than that, there's not a huge difference between different universities, I think.
確かにね。なので、ライリーの知り合いのお話を今話してくれてたので、ちょっと訳したいなと思うんですけれども、神戸大学に行きたい。で、第二候補は大阪一大に行きたいと。今は名前が多分変わってると思うんですけど。で、例えば神戸大学に行くためには大阪一大に入るための勉強時間の、例えば倍勉強しないといけないってなった時に、その2倍勉強するぐらい、その大学に入らないといけないっていう、そこにやっぱ価値があるのって聞いたときに、やっぱ彼はあると言ったと。で、特に日本ではいい大学に入ればいい仕事に就けるっていう、ね、そういう、風潮があるのでと。それが僕さっき言ってたことで、果たしてこのシステム、その風潮で本当にいいのかっていうのを、社会全体とか世の中全体、あるいは雇い手がもっと考えてほしいなって僕は思うんですよね。なので、僕は個人的にどなたかスタッフとかをお探ししてお仕事をお願いするっていう時に、年齢そもそも聞かないのと、大学も一切聞かないのと、何にも知らないまま僕いつも面接するんですよね。なぜかというと、それだけで決めたくないなっていう。でも結構日本って全体的にもうそれで今通しちゃってる、この世の中全体っていいのかなっていうのは個人的に思うんですよね。それと同時にやっぱ勉強頑張った人がね、いいパフォーマンスする傾向にあるっていうのももちろんわかるので、寄せれるんだったらね、そこに寄せて、その需要に寄せて勉強できるんだったらいいと思うんですけど、っていう。で、ライリーが言いたかったのは、アメリカだと最終的にはどこの大学に行ってたなんて関係ないからっていうのが通用する社会なので、アドバイスとしては、アメリカではそういうふうに声かけをするんだけど、日本の場合はそれが当てはまるかわかんないっていうことでしたよね。So, are you really sure that which university or university degree or the level of university doesn't matter when they want to have a job
In America?
in America.
Yeah. Okay. So in America, I think there's a few schools that if you go to, it'll help you to get a job. Like if you go to Harvard or Princeton, whatever, on any of those Ivy League schools, then yeah, that's definitely going to be better than others than, like a local school.
Mhm.
But some people, like the school I went to NYU, which is a pretty good school.
Mhm.
And at the time, I was dead set on going to NYU. I really wanted to go there. I was not, I really didn't want to go to my state school, the University of Maryland. Now, the University of Maryland is not a bad school. It's a pretty good school, but it's not as good as NYU on like the university rankings, right?
Mhm.
But if I compare like the jobs that my university friends got out of school and the jobs that my high school friends who went to University of Maryland got, they're not that different. I mean, they're not really different at all.
Mhm.
So like in America, I think unless you go to like the top of the top school or you go to a bad school, I don't want to say bad, but like let's say a local school that people don't know about, not a famous school, uh, then it doesn't really change what kind of job you get. I mean,
Mhm.
I think what matters more, and this is a lot harder to realize as a high school student, is like the professors you have are probably a lot more important. And it's
Mhm.
really hard to tell when you're going to a school how the professors are going to be, right? Like,
Mhm.
because I know this is kind of a weird example, but like here in Japan, when like foreigners come over and stuff and they say, oh yeah, I studied a bit of Japanese in college, and you'll get talking, oh, like me too, I studied a little bit. And pretty much most people use this Japanese textbook called Genki.
Mhm.
And so when I studied in university, I only studied Japanese for 2 semesters, basically 1 year, and we finished all of the first textbook and almost all of the second textbook. And I talked to some of my friends here, and some of them did the exact same amount of the textbooks, or like maybe they finished the second textbook, but it took them 2 years. So that's probably not the university. That's probably just the professors. Like the professors at that university chose to go slower than the professors at my university. But
Mhm.
it shows a pretty big difference in what the classes were probably like, right?
Mhm.
So I think that that's more important, and that probably affects you, how you are as an employee, how hard you work, or whatever, or how you think about things is probably determined by the kind of questions that your professors ask you in whatever. So, but that's a lot
Mhm.
harder to realize when you're applying to universities.
Mm. And also in Japan, don't have that kind of idea, like choosing a good professor or looking for a good, you know, looking for good classes or something. Because
Mm,
right after getting into university, people start to have fun. So
right.
that's
Well, I mean,
also another difference. Mm.
I think that's absolutely true in America too. I mean, people definitely have fun in university in America, but people study too. Like
Mm.
some people don't. I mean, some people go to university and basically do nothing and just barely pass, and they have the degree. Um, there's an expression in English, C's get degrees,
Mhm.
right? So if you get 70% in all of your classes, you can still pass and you still get to graduate, right? But
Mhm.
you don't have to try super hard to get a 70 in most classes.
Mm.
Um, and then yeah, but people
It
still have fun too.
Yeah, but in Japan, it doesn't happen. Like people don't study. Like they're having a lot of fun. That's so surprising, but people start to have fun a lot. That's
Yeah.
why, yeah, we often hear that Americans' universities are easy to get into, but difficult to graduate from. I often hear
Yeah,
that.
that's a stereotype, I guess, but I don't know if that's really true. I mean, maybe harder than Japanese ones. I don't know. I didn't go to a Japanese university, obviously, but like it I didn't study very much in university. Well,
I think more than Japanese usual
maybe,
yes students.
but yeah, I don't know. That I hear that stereotype a lot, and it might be true, but it's not that hard in American university. It depends. If you go for like a math major or a physics major, or you want to be a doctor or something like that, then those are pretty hard courses, but most people don't. Most people go to college for like English or communications or business, and most of those courses are pretty easy.
Because you have to have like paper and studies or something, but in Japan a lot of universities don't require students to have that kind of, for example, writing paper or studies. And seriously, it's so much fun.
At all?
Yeah, some universities. Yeah, at all. So my
Like
friends,
you never write an essay in university?
I mean like a graduation paper.
Oh, a graduation paper. Okay.
Yeah, but seriously, people start to have fun a lot in Japan. That's kind of weird. Another weird thing, and also kind of difference between America and Japan. And yeah, my friends went to American college, university, and then she or he also said that it's much more, than Japanese assignments or tasks.
Like so the workload?
Yeah.
That's
like
that's kind of
homework.
surprising.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The only thing I remember is that, and I liked this actually, but we had a lot of reading. I mean,
Yeah. That's
like
true.
we had to read probably, I mean, so it depends on the class, but like probably some classes asked us to read like 100 pages a day, which is a lot. Most people wouldn't do all the reading. They would kind of skim some of the ones that weren't so interesting or whatever, but yes, there was a lot of reading, but as far as like work and actual like studying, not that much.
Oh, really? So that depends on, the school or the major, maybe.
Yeah.
なるほどね。そっか。そう、どこからこの話が始まってましたっけ？そう、まあ、大学に入ったらね、すごく遊ぶっていうのは、日本は本当にね、結構な派手さだと思うんですよね、僕的には。で、僕も真面目そうに見えて、ガリガリ勉強っていうのが苦手なタイプなので、こう、要領よく、卒業できる程度に勉強してっていうのもしつつ、でも英語とか、これは絶対将来必要だと思うものは見定めて、それだけにはもう命かけるほど頑張るみたいな、その一つに、まあ、例えばバイトで接客力を磨くっていうのもその一つだったりとか、まあいっぱいあったんですけど、なんか日本ってそこは一つ、ちょっと海外と違う視点としては、こう、大学に入った途端すごく遊ぶと。でも、ライリー曰く、学部とかにもよって、アメリカの大学って卒業は難しいって、まあ聞くけど、それがステレオタイプに当てはまるって感じるくらい、結構簡単に卒業できる場合もあるよ、とライリーは言ってましたけど、いや、でも、リーディングをいっぱいしたってね、ライリー言ってましたけど、日本ってそんないっぱいリーディングさせられますかっていう論文をね、こう読んだり書いたりみたいなのってそんなにあるかなと思うので、僕はなんか、いや、日本は遊ぶよって今も思ってるんですけど、まあそういう違いも一つありますよね。まあ、ただ、今この会話で言いたかったのがそうだ思い出した。ライリーのその友達のいい大学に行った人と、まあ、地元の、そんな別に悪いっていうわけじゃないけど、まあ、普通の大学に行った人、今働いてる仕事見ても変わんないと。アメリカはね、それが機能すると。日本はどうなんでしょうね。それが機能するのかどうかっていうのはちょっとわからないんですが、なんかこう、いい大学に行ってないといい職業へのチャンスがない。そもそも大学卒業してないと応募できないお仕事とかも多いですもんね。それってあるんですかね？ So, how about this one? Like, in Japan, there is like for example, if we want to apply for a certain job, and on that website it says you need it to graduate from university. That kind of thing happen in America too?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
それはあるんや。 then in this way, university degree is sometimes important, even in the
Yeah,
States.
yeah, I think the degree matters, but where you get the degree is not that important.
なるほど。どこの大学を出たかとかは、そっか、それほど関係ないっていうところか。そっか、そうなると次ね、高卒の資格、中卒の資格っていうところで、どれだけね、日本とアメリカで違いがあるのかっていうところの話にもまた発展しちゃうんですけど、今はね、大学の資格のお話になってますけどね。まあでもなんか、僕が一つ、この番組を聞いてくださってる受験生の方とか、親御さんとかになんか考えてほしいなと思うのが、勉強、勉強、勉強、勉強で育ってたり、あるいはそれで育って、そこに頑張って、なんか将来20年後、30年後とかを見たときに、何ですかね、面白い人間になれてるのか、本人自身が本当に楽しい人生を歩めてるのかっていうところにすごく疑問を抱くなって思うんですよね。で、僕も大阪の進学校に通ってたので、周りはすごく勉強、勉強の親とか、もう勉強が全てで、勉強で人の価値を決める子たちがすごく多くて、今その子たちが、仕事をしてるのを見たときに、確かにいいところに就職してる子たちもいます。そういう子って、もうそのままね、親に大事に大事に育てられて、なんかあったら親のサポートを受けて、ずっとそれで行く人もごく稀にいるじゃないですか。でもそれと同時に、挫折を知らない友達も多いので、仕事でなんか嫌なことがあったら、もう立ち直れないみたいな、で、そうなった時に、ユニークに楽しく、ポジティブシンキングで思考をチェンジしていくっていうのがしんどい友達とかもすごく多くて、その一方で僕はですね、ちょくちょく出てきますけど、学生の頃に結構大きな病気をしたりとか、まあいろいろあったので、父親が結構亡くなったっていうのが僕の中で大きかったんですけど、結構その後の高校生活とかに影響を受けて、なんか枠にはまった人生を歩んでこなかったんですよね、高校以降から。でも、僕はその経験にすごく感謝していて、そういう人生が大好きと思っていて、なぜなら、いい意味でも、僕は自分でぶっ飛んでると思ってるんですけど、何があってももう今怖くないんですね。枠からはみ出ることこそ面白いことだったり、なんかあった時に枠からはみ出たって別にええやんって思っていける。なんか、受験を頑張りすぎて、枠にはまってしか生きていけない人たちが、もし今これを聞いてくださってるのであれば、そういう人生もありなんじゃないかなっていうのを、今日はこの入試の制度から、なんですかね、日本社会で起きている型にはまらないといけないっていうところに、まあ、何か疑問だったりとか、メッセージをお届けできたらなと思って、最後はここでちょっと終わっておきたいなと思います。So actually, I was, as I said, studying at the kind of, high level high school where a lot of students were studying so hard and then everyone judged and evaluated people's quality based on scores. And now, um, considering those friends who graduated from the same high school, I think a certain number of people got a good job. But at the same time, you know, my friends, for example, want to quit his job, but he
Uh-huh.
can't because he's he doesn't know how to go through hard times because everything was successful to him, and
Mm.
then he can't flexibly, um, you know, change his mind, and then I feel like they're having a hard time right now. So, what I want to tell through this episode is that if students are listening to this, or if the students' parents are listening to this, it might be also okay to have um, a different life. For example, in my case, I couldn't or I didn't go to school when I was a high school student, and it's gonna be long, so I need to make it shorter. But I lost my father, and then that experience affected me when I was younger, and I decided not to go to school because I didn't want to see everyone who was just thinking about study. But because of that experience, even now, I can flexibly think, oh, if I can't do this, let's take this way. And I don't need to follow all the rules everyone is, thinking about in Japan. Like this, my point is, I sometimes need to, sometimes it's important to have flexible mind, or we can be out of, what is a good word, Riley? Help me. We can be out of
step? What do you mean?
or out of the standard path everyone follows.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because my point is a lot of students or Japanese people are thinking too much because they have to fit in the environment or the society. So sometimes we can out of it and then we can think more flexibly. Did that make sense?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think if you stay on that path from, junior high school to getting into a good high school to a good university to a good job, and then suddenly you don't like your job, yeah, you're right. It's probably a lot harder to try to change careers than someone who didn't do that path the whole time and maybe struggled because they didn't go to university, but they started a business or they worked like two different part-time jobs and whatever. Like that kind of person maybe is more flexible with what they are comfortable trying or doing. It doesn't mean it's better because that person definitely had hard times too, I bet, but it might mean more flexible for doing other things in the future.
Yeah, and we talked about positive aspects of Japanese entrance examination system, but at the same time, like this, those hard time affects, the society itself, where people have to work hard and people have to escape from the, rule, and then people can think more flexibly. So parents or companies or anybody could think of something different or some other ways, related to this entrance examination and then the whole society system. I think that affects badly sometimes. I thought people's, especially mind or mentality.
Yeah, I agree. But I think at the same time, a positive thing is that it does provide some sort of stability for people.
Like that's true.
Like in America, a lot of people are not sure what they're going to do after high school and are certainly not sure what they're going to do after college. I was probably one of those people for college. I didn't really know what I was going to do until I decided to come to Japan, but that happens to a lot of people. And in Japan, the system kind of sets you up to almost know where you're going to go every step of the way. Like what kind of job you're going to do after college might be hard, but that you're going to go through the shushoku process, right? And you're going to try to apply to a bunch of places or whatever, and then you'll get a job and you'll have that job for a while. Maybe that's changing probably now, but for a while there was kind of a track that you follow. And as long as you work hard, you can take that track basically until you die, like
yeah.
There's something good in that. There's bad maybe in that too, but it is at least a sense of security, I think.
And my point is, once they out of the step, what can they do? And can they think more flexibly? So we can do it, hopefully. But that entrance examination system, and it affects the whole society system or way of thinking, then perhaps that system or that society might create or produce people, who can think flexibly once they are out of the step. So yeah, as you said, we have stability and we're kind of, guaranteed. That's what you meant, right?
Yeah, there is some kind of guarantee that if you work hard, you will get some sort of job or something like that. Yeah.
そうですね。ちょっとなんか話してると、長くなってきましたが、確かに stability も、打っておいてもらいましょうかね。guarantee。
Sure. That's like my fifth word of
そう、今
of
日、
the episode.
僕ももう打つ余裕がないなって思ったんですけど、そう、最後ポジティブで締めくくるならば、エスカレーターというか、ステップがあることで、安定性の保証は結構日本ってありますよね。ここのルートを通れば、誰もがなんかいい仕事に就けるみたいな。でも僕が一番言いたいのは、そのステップから外れた時に、打たれ弱い、しんどくなりやすい人を、社会全体のシステム的に作ってしまってる感じがすごくして、その根幹の理由とか、根元から来てるのってこういう入試の制度とか、小さい時に枠にはめて教育をするとか、なんかそういうところから大きく社会全体の風潮に僕は影響を与えてしまってる気がすごくしてしまったので、そう、いいところももちろんあると同時に、なんかそこで苦しくなってる方がもしいらっしゃったら、僕みたいになんかもう枠からはみ出まくってるやつもいることを思い出していただいて、なんかうーん、打たれ強く、いろんな道があるわ、噛んじゃった。いろんな道があるわってね、思っていただけたら嬉しいなと思います。では今日のエピソードはい
かがでしたでしょうか？
いかがでしたでしょうか？It got, more difficult, for me to explain, and the simple topic got more confusing.
Yeah, I kind of thought at the beginning we were just going to kind of compare the situation, what you do when you apply to university, and then we ended up talking a little bit more deeply than that, but that's okay.
And what I wanted to say around the end was the university or the entrance examination system that requires hard working affects the whole Japanese system where people, have to work hard and people cannot escape from the path that everyone follows. So my point was, anybody could be anybody, and then there would be any ways to take. So did that make sense when I was talking?
You can make your own path, I think is what you want to say.
Oh, I mean, yeah. And also, I want a lot of people to think about that fact. Is that really okay for you? To have that kind of system, companies or university, test makers or something. Because sometimes it affects badly people's mind in Japan. And the root cause might come from perhaps the, hard study during the student's time. Did that make sense?
Sure. Feeling kind of trapped by what they think they have to do.
So, this episode, I'm hoping this episode would be something thought-provoking for, companies who hire people. Are they gonna, really, hire people who only studied harder or anybody? 難しくなっちゃった。
Yeah. If you're a shacho listening to this right now, try to hire some free-thinking people too. I don't know.
そうやね。僕も今、自分でなんでこんな熱く語ってんやろと思ったんですけど、なんか、いろんな方がやっぱ聞かれてるってなった時に、いろんな、例えば企業の社長さんが、本当に、じゃあ学歴だけで本当に取ってていいんすかっていうのを例えば投げかけたいとか、勉強って教えてる親がいらっしゃったならば、本当にそんな風に育ててお子さんの幸せになるんですかとか、お子さんがやりたい道をちゃんと通ってるんですかっていう疑問だったり、あるいは受験勉強頑張ってる本人さん、生徒さん自身も、私って本当にこの勉強これをやって、これで本当に人生楽しめるのかとか、いろんな人になんか考えてほしいなって思ったがゆえに、そう、いろんなこの投げかけをしていたっていうところなんですけど、今の日本語でライリー取れた
No, I did not.
Like parents who are raising kids like study harder. And I want to ask them, is that really okay for you to raise kids? And then, is your son or daughter having fun? And in the future, they can? Are you really sure about that? Or to companies, presidents, as I said, are you really going to hire only those people who studied hard? Or like students themselves, I want them to think like, are you really sure you're studying 8 hours a day for 8 hours a day, and are you going to have a better life, or are you really happy about that right now? I wanted to ask, everybody that kind of question. That's why I was talking in that way. っていうことが言いたかった。っていうのはこれ伝わってるよな。
Yeah.
Do you think everyone can understand?
I think that's a good question to ask. Yeah.
よかった。それだったらよかった。自分でも今話しててなんか。
I mean, I think people can understand what you're saying.
Oh, they can.
I hope that they can. Yeah, I think so. I hope that they can actually listen to it, though. I mean, I don't know if it's going to change many people's minds, but maybe one or two. Who knows?
Yeah, they can think about it. ありがとうございます。よかったよかった。安心しました。では、今回すごく長くなっちゃいましたが、皆さんお聞きいただいてありがとうございました。僕は英語のソータという名前で、いろいろ調べていただくと出てくると思いますので、最近 YouTube もね、テイラー・スウィフト関係のアップしましたのでご覧ください。Reilly Sullivan XE で調べると出てきます。では、また次回のエピソードでお会いしましょう。バイ。
Bye.